What happens when a calm, composed Hollywood star walks onto a daytime talk show? And within minutes, the entire room goes completely silent. Make sure to subscribe to the Star Talks and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The camera opens on the familiar set of The View, the audience already buzzing with energy. The hosts are mid-conversation, light laughter floating across the table. Whoopi Goldberg leans back slightly, smiling, while Joy Behar gestures animatedly, finishing a point about a trending headline. Whoopi turns toward the camera with that smooth transition she's known for. All right, coming up next, we have an actress you all know and love. She's starred in everything from action to drama, and now she's here to talk about her latest project. Please welcome Emily Blunt. The audience erupts into applause as Emily walks out, smiling warmly, waving with that understated charm she's known for. She greets each host with a hug, Whoopi, Joy, Sunny Hostin, and Alyssa Farah Griffin, before taking her seat. Emily settles in, crossing her legs, visibly relaxed. "It's so nice to be here," she says, her British accent soft but clear. Joy leans in immediately, smiling but with that sharp curiosity she often carries. "We're happy to have you. You've been busy, very busy. I mean, it feels like every time I turn on the TV, there you are." Emily laughs lightly. That's either a good thing or a very annoying one. The audience chuckles. Whoopi nods. "It's a good thing. Trust me." The conversation starts easy. Emily talks about her latest film, the challenges of balancing work and family, and even shares a quick story about filming in extreme weather. The tone is warm, conversational, exactly what viewers expect. Sunny jumps in. "You've always chosen roles that feel intentional, like you're saying something with your work." Emily nods thoughtfully. "I think that's important. I don't want to just show up. I want it to mean something, even if it's subtle." Joy tilts her head slightly, watching Emily closely. There's a brief pause, almost imperceptible, but enough to shift the rhythm. "Well," Joy says, leaning forward, "sometimes people say that actors think they're saying more than they actually are." There's a soft murmur from the audience. Nothing dramatic, just that ripple of, "Oh, where is this going?" Emily smiles politely, but her expression tightens just a fraction. "That's fair," she replies. "But I think audiences are smarter than we give them credit for." Joy shrugs. Or maybe audiences just want to be entertained and not lectured. Whoopi glances sideways at Joy, sensing the shift. "We're still early in the segment, Joy," she says lightly, trying to keep things smooth. But Joy continues, her tone still conversational but edged. "I'm just saying, there's a trend now where actors step off the screen and suddenly they're experts on everything." The audience reacts again, this time louder, a mix of laughter and discomfort. Emily's posture changes. It's subtle but noticeable. She straightens slightly, her hands now clasped together in her lap. "I don't think anyone's claiming to be an expert," Emily says calmly. "But having a platform means people will ask your opinion. And staying silent can also be seen as a statement." Joy raises an eyebrow. "Or maybe it's just better to stay in your lane." A few gasps ripple through the audience. Sunny quickly interjects. "I think what Emily's saying is..." But Emily gently lifts her hand, not cutting Sunny off, just signaling she wants to respond herself. "No, it's okay," Emily says, still composed. She turns slightly toward Joy. "I understand that perspective. I really do. But I think it assumes that people are only one thing. That because I'm an actress, I'm not allowed to think or speak or engage with the world beyond a script." The audience applauds lightly. Joy smiles, but it's tighter now. "No one's saying you're not allowed. I'm saying maybe it's not always necessary." Whoopi leans forward, trying to soften the tension. "We all have opinions here. That's why we're at this table." Emily nods toward Whoopi. "Exactly. And I respect that. I came here knowing this is a place for conversation." There's a brief pause. The energy has shifted, no longer light and easy, but not explosive either. It's that delicate live TV tension where everyone is aware something is building. Alyssa tries to pivot slightly. "Your new film actually touches on some of these themes: responsibility, influence." But Joy interrupts again, turning back to Emily. "Let me ask you this directly. Do you think actors have a responsibility to speak out on social issues?" The question lands heavier than the ones before. Emily takes a breath. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just a measured pause. "I think everyone has a responsibility," she says. "Not just actors." The audience claps again, a bit louder this time. Joy leans back, crossing her arms. "That's a safe answer." Emily's eyes flicker, just for a second. It's the first visible crack in her calm demeanor. It's not meant to be safe, she replies. It's meant to be honest. The room quiets slightly. Whoopi looks between them, her expression more serious now. All right, we're getting into it early today, she says, half joking, half managing the moment. The audience laughs nervously, but the tension doesn't fully break. Joy leans forward again, her tone sharper now. Because sometimes it feels like honesty is curated, like it's designed to be well received. That's the moment something shifts completely. Emily doesn't smile this time. She holds Joy's gaze, steady, unblinking. For you to assume that, Emily says quietly, you'd have to believe that people aren't capable of sincerity anymore. The audience goes silent. Not a murmur. Not a laugh. Just silence. Whoopi's eyes widen slightly, sensing the weight of the moment. Sunny looks down briefly, then back up, clearly aware they've crossed into something deeper than a typical segment. Joy doesn't back off. Or, she says, I believe people are very good at performing sincerity. A few scattered reactions from the audience, some ohs, some uneasy shifting. Emily exhales slowly, her composure still intact, but the warmth from earlier is gone. Well, she says, then I suppose we're all performing right now, aren't we? That lands. Hard. The audience reacts with a mix of applause and tension, unsure whether to fully support or just witness what's happening. Whoopi immediately steps in, her voice firm but calm. All right, hold on. This is a conversation, not a courtroom. A small laugh breaks through, but it doesn't fully dissolve the moment. Emily leans back slightly now, her posture controlled, her expression serious. I didn't come here to argue, she says. But I also won't sit here and have my intentions questioned like that. Joy opens her mouth to respond, and the segment teeters right on the edge of something much bigger. Joy doesn't respond immediately this time. For a split second, the silence stretches just a little too long for live television. The audience can feel it, that strange, suspended moment where no one's quite sure who's going to speak first. Whoopi steps in again, her tone measured. All right, let's keep this respectful. We're all just talking here. Emily nods slightly, acknowledging it, but she doesn't look away from Joy. I'm being respectful, she says calmly. I just think it's important not to dismiss people's intentions without actually knowing them. Joy exhales through her nose, a quick, almost amused breath. I'm not dismissing you personally, she says, though her tone suggests otherwise. I'm talking about a broader trend. Sunny leans forward, sensing an opening to de-escalate. And I think that's where maybe there's a disconnect, she says. Because when you say trend, it can sound like you're grouping everyone together. Exactly, Emily adds, her voice steady but firmer now. And that's where it becomes unfair. Joy turns towards Sunny briefly, then back to Emily. But isn't that what happens all the time? People get grouped together. Politicians, journalists, even us. She gestures around the table. Talk show hosts. Alyssa nods slightly. That's true, but there's also a difference between discussing a pattern and making it feel personal. The audience murmurs in agreement. Emily shifts in her seat, her hands now resting on the table. And I think when you say something like stay in your lane, it does become personal, she says. Because it implies that I don't have the right to step outside of what you've decided my lane is. Joy tilts her head. Or it implies that expertise matters. There's a small ripple of applause from part of the audience, mixed, divided. Emily doesn't react to the applause. Her focus stays locked. Of course expertise matters, she says. But having an opinion doesn't mean you're claiming expertise. It means you're participating. Whoopi nods slowly. That's a fair point. Joy glances at Whoopi, then back at Emily. But participation can influence people. That's the issue. And silence can influence people too. Emily replies quickly, almost instinctively. That line lands with more confidence than anything she's said so far. The audience responds with louder applause, a few people even leaning forward in their seats. Joy raises her eyebrows. So now actors are obligated to speak? Emily shakes her head immediately. No, that's not what I said. Sounds like it, Joy presses. The tension spikes again. Sunny jumps in, her voice slightly more urgent now. I think what Emily is trying to say is that there's nuance here. But Emily gently shakes her head again, still calm but clearly wanting to handle it herself. No, I'll say it plainly, she says. No one is obligated. But no one should be discouraged either. A pause. That word, discouraged, hangs in the air. Joy leans back, crossing her arms again. Discouraged or challenged? Emily doesn't miss a beat. There's a difference. Alyssa nods quietly. There is. Joy lets out a small laugh, but there's no humor in it. You're very good at this, she says. Emily's expression tightens slightly. At what? At answering in a way that sounds good. A few audible oofs from the audience. Whoopi's eyes shift quickly to Joy. Okay, but Emily speaks before Whoopi can redirect. I'm not trying to sound good, Emily says, her voice still controlled but now carrying a sharper edge. I'm trying to communicate clearly. Joy shrugs. Same thing sometimes. The audience grows quieter again, the earlier applause fading into a more cautious silence. Sunny looks between them, clearly concerned. I think we might be talking past each other a bit, she says. Because this started as a general conversation, and now it feels personal. Emily finishes, glancing at her briefly. Sunny nods. A little. Emily turns back to Joy. It feels personal because it's being framed that way. Joy shakes her head. No, it's being challenged. There's a difference. Emily leans forward slightly now, mirroring Joy's earlier posture. But you're not challenging my ideas, you're questioning my sincerity. That line hits harder than expected. The audience reacts with a mix of claps and low murmurs. Joy opens her mouth, pauses, then responds. Because sincerity is hard to measure when someone has a public image to maintain. Whoopi raises a hand. All right, let's. But Emily speaks again, this time more firmly than before. Not louder, just unmistakably more direct. Do you think I'm being insincere right now? The room freezes. That's the moment everything shifts from general debate to something unmistakably direct. Joy doesn't answer immediately. She studies Emily for a second, clearly weighing her response. The audience is completely silent now. Even the usual background movement, the shifting, the quiet chatter, is gone. Finally, Joy says, I think you're very aware of how you come across. A few scattered reactions, some agreement, some discomfort. Emily nods slowly, as if processing it. Of course I am, she says. We're on live television. A small, nervous laugh breaks out from the audience. But that doesn't mean I'm not being genuine, she continues. It means I'm being thoughtful. Sunny nods emphatically. That's a good distinction. Joy doesn't look convinced. Or careful. Emily tilts her head slightly. Is being careful a bad thing? Joy pauses, then shrugs. Depends on what you're being careful about. There's a subtle shift in Emily's expression. Less defensive now, more resolute. I think, Emily says slowly, choosing each word, that sometimes people assume the worst about public figures because it's easier than accepting that they might actually mean what they say. The audience responds with a wave of applause, stronger, more unified this time. Joy glances briefly toward the audience, then back at Emily. And I think sometimes public figures rely on that assumption to avoid deeper scrutiny. The applause cuts off abruptly. Whoopi leans forward, her voice firmer now. Okay, we're not going to sit here and accuse each other of bad faith. There's authority in her tone, and it lands. A brief pause follows. Emily leans back again, taking a breath. She nods slightly toward Whoopi. That's fair, she says. For a moment, it seems like the tension might ease. Alyssa seizes the opportunity. Let's bring it back to your work for a second, she says quickly. Because your new role actually deals with perception and identity. Emily smiles faintly, grateful for the shift. Yes, it does. But Joy cuts in again, quieter this time, but just as pointed. One last thing, though. The audience reacts instantly, some groans, some laughter. Whoopi closes her eyes briefly, then opens them. Joy! Joy raises a hand. No, just one question. Emily looks at her, expression neutral now, guarded. Joy leans forward slightly. Do you ever worry, she says, that speaking out, no matter how well-intentioned, can do more harm than good? The question is different. Less accusatory on the surface, but heavier. Emily doesn't answer right away. She looks down for a second, then back up. And when she speaks, her voice is quieter, but it carries across the entire room. I worry more, she says, about what happens when people stay silent out of fear of being misunderstood. The audience doesn't clap this time. They just listen. Joy studies her again, and for the first time, there's a flicker of something different. Not agreement, not exactly, but a shift. Whoopi nods slowly. That's a real answer, she says. Sunny adds softly, it is. The tension is still there, but it's changed shape now. Less sharp, more layered, but not resolved. And everyone in the room can feel it's far from over. The quiet lingers for a moment after Emily finishes speaking. It's not the uncomfortable kind from earlier. It's heavier now, more reflective, but it still carries tension underneath. Whoopi leans forward slightly, resting her hands on the table. All right, she says, her tone calmer, grounding. That's something people at home are probably thinking about right now. A few audience members nod, some murmuring softly. Joy shifts in her chair, her posture loosening just a bit, but her eyes still fixed on Emily. It's a thoughtful answer, she admits. I'll give you that. Emily gives a small nod. Thank you. But the pause that follows doesn't feel like closure. It feels like a reset before something else. Sunny takes a breath and steps in carefully. I think what's interesting here is that both of you are talking about responsibility, just from different angles, she says. Emily's talking about the responsibility to speak, and Joy, you're talking about the responsibility to be careful about impact. Joy glances at Sunny. Exactly. And those don't have to cancel each other out, Sunny continues. They can exist at the same time. Emily nods. I agree with that. Joy hesitates, then nods as well, though more reluctantly. In theory. A small ripple of laughter moves through the audience, light but cautious. Alyssa leans in, sensing a chance to stabilize things. I think a lot of viewers relate to this because it's not just about celebrities, she says. It's about everyday people deciding when to speak up, at work, online, even with family. Emily turns slightly toward her. Exactly. It's a broader conversation. Joy raises a finger slightly. But everyday people don't have millions of followers. Emily responds quickly, but without the earlier edge. That's true, but the principle is the same. Joy tilts her head. Is it, though? Because influence changes the stakes. The audience reacts again, this time more evenly split, some clapping, some staying quiet. Whoopi watches closely, her expression focused. She doesn't interrupt yet. Emily pauses, considering. Influence does change the stakes, she says. I won't argue that. But it doesn't change the basic idea that people should be allowed to express themselves without being immediately doubted. Joy leans back, tapping her fingers lightly on the table. I don't think it's about doubting, it's about questioning. And questioning isn't a bad thing. Emily nods slowly. No, it isn't. There's a brief pause. But there's a difference between questioning what someone says, Emily continues, and questioning why they're saying it. The audience reacts again, more murmurs, a few claps. Joy's lips press together slightly. Motivation matters. Emily holds her gaze. It does. But assuming motivation without evidence, that's where it becomes unfair. Whoopi finally steps in again, her tone firmer. Okay, now we're getting into philosophy, she says, half smiling. And we've got a show to keep moving. The audience laughs, grateful for the slight release. But even as the laughter fades, the energy doesn't fully relax. Sunny leans back slightly, then forward again, as if deciding whether to go deeper. She does. Can I ask something? She says, looking at both of them. Whoopi nods. Go ahead. Sunny turns to Emily first. Has there ever been a moment where you spoke out and later thought, maybe I shouldn't have said that? Emily doesn't answer right away. She takes a breath, her expression softening a little. Of course, she says. I think anyone who's honest would say yes. The audience nods, some quietly agreeing. Sunny then turns to Joy. And for you, has there ever been a moment where you wish someone with a platform had said more? Joy pauses. That question lands differently. Yeah, she says after a moment. There have been times. That admission shifts something. Emily notices it. Then we're not that far apart, she says gently. Joy looks at her, considering that. Maybe not, she admits. For a second, it feels like the tension might finally settle into something balanced. But then Joy adds, but I still think there's a level of self-awareness that comes with being in your position that not everyone fully embraces. The audience reacts again, some agreement, some hesitation. Emily's expression tightens just slightly. Not defensive, more focused. I agree with that, she says. Self-awareness is crucial. Joy nods. Right. And sometimes it feels like, she pauses, choosing her words, like that awareness gets replaced with confidence. Emily tilts her head. Confidence isn't inherently negative. No, Joy says. But overconfidence can be. A small murmur runs through the audience. Emily leans forward again, this time more measured than before. Do you think I'm overconfident? She asks, not confrontational, just direct. The room stills again. Joy hesitates. Not long, but enough for people to notice. I think you're very sure of your perspective, she says. Emily nods once. I am. There's no apology in it. No softening. Just a statement. The audience reacts, some clapping, some whispering. Whoopi watches closely now, clearly aware they're walking a fine line again. Emily continues, her voice calm but firm. But being sure of your perspective doesn't mean you're unwilling to listen. I've listened to everything you've said. Joy looks at her, then nods slightly. You have. And I understand your concerns, Emily adds. I just don't think they justify dismissing people before they've even had a chance to speak. Joy exhales slowly, leaning back again. I don't think I'm dismissing you, she says. Emily responds immediately, but without raising her voice. It felt like it. That honesty lands. No sharpness. No accusation in tone. Just directness. The audience reacts quietly, more attentive now than reactive. Sunny nods. That's important, to say how it felt. Joy glances at Sunny, then back at Emily. For the first time, there's a slight softening in her expression. That wasn't my intention, she says. Emily nods. I believe you. There's a subtle shift in the room. Not resolution, but a lowering of the temperature. Alyssa smiles faintly. This is actually a really productive conversation now. The audience laughs lightly, some clapping. Whoopi leans back, exhaling. Took us a minute to get here, she says. More laughter. But Joy isn't entirely done. She leans forward again, though less sharply this time. I just think, at the end of the day, people with influence have to accept that they'll be questioned. Sometimes harshly. Emily nods. I agree with that. Joy continues. And that questioning doesn't always mean hostility. Emily considers that, then nods again. That's fair. A pause. It feels like a balance has finally been reached, fragile, but real. But then Emily adds, quietly, as long as that questioning goes both ways. Joy's eyes narrow slightly. What do you mean? Emily meets her gaze. I mean that sometimes the people doing the questioning aren't used to being questioned themselves. The audience reacts immediately, louder this time. A mix of oh and applause. Whoopi straightens slightly. All right, but the moment has already landed. Joy doesn't smile this time. She studies Emily carefully. That's part of the job here, Joy says. We get questioned all the time. Emily nods. And that's fair. A beat. But it should still be balanced, she adds. The room quiets again. The conversation has shifted once more, not back to conflict exactly, but into something deeper, more personal than before. And everyone can feel it. The segment isn't winding down. It's building towards something else. The audience's reaction lingers for a few seconds after Emily's last line. It's louder than before, less divided, more emotionally charged, but it slowly settles into a quiet that feels earned rather than forced. Whoopi leans forward, her voice steady, stepping in before the moment can tip again. All right, she says with a small nod. I think we've reached that point where everybody's made themselves very clear. A few laughs ripple through the audience, soft but genuine. Joy sits back in her chair, her posture less rigid now. She exhales, glancing briefly toward the audience before looking back at Emily. Look, she says, her tone noticeably calmer. I don't disagree with everything you're saying. That alone shifts the energy. Emily gives a small nod, her expression still serious, but no longer guarded. And I don't disagree with everything you're saying either. Sunny smiles slightly, clearly relieved. There we go, she says. The audience claps, this time more comfortably. Joy continues. I think where I push back is when it feels like influence isn't being fully acknowledged. That's all. Emily listens without interrupting, then responds. And I think where I push back is when that influence is used as a reason to doubt sincerity before someone even speaks. Joy nods slowly. That's fair. There's a pause, not tense this time, just reflective. Whoopi looks between them. That's what this table is supposed to be, she says. Different views, same conversation. Alyssa adds, and honestly, this is probably one of the more real discussions we've had in a while. The audience reacts with agreement, some applause, a few cheers. Emily lets out a small breath, almost a quiet release of tension. I didn't expect it to go this way, she admits. Joy smiles slightly. Neither did I. That gets a laugh from the audience. Sunny leans in again, bringing the tone back to something lighter, but still meaningful. Before we wrap, I do want to say, this is why people watch The View. Not just for the headlines, but for moments like this. Whoopi nods. Real conversations. Emily glances around the table. I appreciate being able to have it, she says. Even if it got a little intense. Joy chuckles softly. A little. The audience laughs again, louder this time. Whoopi smiles. That's our brand. For a moment, everything feels back in balance. Not erased, just understood. Whoopi turns slightly toward the camera. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk more with Emily Blunt about her new film, and maybe something a little less stressful. The audience laughs and applauds as the segment fades out. The show returns from commercial with a noticeably lighter tone. The conversation shifts back to Emily's work, behind-the-scenes stories, funny on-set moments, even a quick anecdote about her family that gets a warm reaction from the audience. But something has changed. There's a subtle difference in how everyone interacts now, more careful, more aware. Joy still asks questions, but her tone is softer. Emily still answers with confidence, but there's a bit more openness in her delivery. The earlier tension hasn't disappeared. It's just settled into something quieter. As the segment wraps for good, Whoopi thanks Emily again. The audience gives a strong, supportive round of applause, arguably louder than when she first walked out. Emily stands, hugs each of the hosts again. When she reaches Joy, there's a brief moment, just a second, where both hesitate. Then they hug. It's quick, but genuine enough to be noticed. The audience reacts immediately, applause, a few cheers. And just like that, the on-air moment ends. But off-air is where things really start to move. Clips from the exchange begin circulating almost instantly. Within minutes, segments of the conversation are uploaded, shared, reposted. The moment where Emily asks, "Do you think I'm being insincere right now?" becomes the focal point. On platforms like Twitter and YouTube, reactions flood in. Some viewers praise Emily for staying composed under pressure, calling her calm but firm, highlighting how she didn't raise her voice but still stood her ground. Others side with Joy, arguing that her questions were valid and necessary, that public figures should be challenged, especially when they speak on broader issues. Clips dissect every moment, the pauses, the tone shifts, the audience reactions. People analyze body language, timing, even facial expressions. One post reads, "Emily Blunt didn't lose her cool once. That's how you handle a tough interview." Another counters, "Joy Behar asked what a lot of people think but don't say." The debate spreads beyond just fans of The View. Media commentators pick it up, discussing the broader themes: celebrity influence, authenticity, responsibility. By the end of the day, it's one of the most talked about segments from the show in weeks. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere is calmer. Sources close to the production mention that there was no blow-up backstage. No shouting, no lingering hostility. Just a few quiet conversations, mutual acknowledgements, and a shared understanding that things got heated, but stayed respectful. Emily reportedly thanks the hosts before leaving, taking a moment to speak privately with a couple of them. There's no dramatic fallout, just that lingering sense of that was a moment. Joy, for her part, addresses it briefly later, reiterating that challenging guests is part of the job, but also acknowledging that the conversation brought up important points. And for viewers, that's what sticks. Not just the tension, but how it was handled. The pauses, the restraint, the moments where it could have escalated further, but didn't. Back on your screen, that's exactly what makes moments like this stand out. A conversation that starts light, turns tense, and somehow finds its way back without completely falling apart. So what did you think about this intense exchange between Emily Blunt and Joy Behar? Was Emily right to push back the way she did? Or do you think Joy was right to question her? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to the Star Talks for more real talk show stories.